Welcome back to Scrapland for another scrap journal sketch. Today we're going to go with a very simple layout, a band of approximately 3.5 inches. It will have a border across the top and the bottom. The sketch has a 3.5 by 5 inch photo. This mat is for 3.5 by 5.5, which we will use as a placeholder. The whole point of this layout is to just show how quick and easy scrap journal pages can be, and you can put your photos on them too, not just for journaling. Of course, my finished product will be for a journaling spot, but I'm ready to get started on making this page. I went into my stash. I found these two scraps. This one will be used for punching our border. This will be our center band that goes across the middle. It has a gradient style. It may be from Gradient Grace, I'm not certain. So I've decided I want to keep all of the top lighter gradient intact, so I'm going to cut off some of the dark end. This is actually a just about 4.5 inches wide. It is 4.5 inches wide. I'm going to keep this band at its current width, which is 4.5 inches tall, and I'm just going to cut myself a 6.75 inch width from it right here. And I like it. It's wider than what is called for, and this looks a bit wide here too. Let's double check that I cut this. No, I was a little generous. We can cut a little more off. There we go. And there. Okay. And this is pretty much our layout. So let's cut our top and bottom borders. We're going to use the scallop border maker cartridge. Make sure it's in there good. Now this scallop border maker cartridge stays attached to the page. So we're going to cut it. Shows up better here of what it's going to look like. I'm not crazy about this design, and that's why I like using a punch similar to this, where you just get the color coming out and not the pattern necessarily. I'm going to cut this at 1 1/4 inches. Okay. Now, here's a little hack. A lot of this scallop is going to be hidden behind this mat for a photo. And so, what I'm going to do, I could do two things. I could cut a second scallop to go on the bottom, but I'm not. I don't need to. I can make this 12-inch border work on the top and the bottom of this layout. And the reason I can do that out of one piece is because the scallop that goes up here is going to be covered up significantly. Okay? So here's my hack. I'm going to cut this for the bottom side. I'm going to go ahead and cut it at the 6 3/4 inch because you can see the full 6 3/4 of an inch. Now I also want to say that this also works because this is a non-directional paper, and if the paper was showing enough and it had a lot of direction on it, then this would not work. Okay. So when I cut 6 3/4 inches, I'm going to have 5 1/4 inches left. So now I have 6 3/4 and 5 1/4. The hack comes in when I need to make this 5 1/4 inch border stretch across the paper. But 3 1/2 inches of it is going to be covered up anyway. So this amount here, we're putting this with an offset here. So this amount is going to be showing, and we need about, it looks like a good solid inch on this side is going to show. So this is sort of a dry fit test of what our layout is going to look like. We have our bottom scallop going side to side at 6 3/4 inches, but the 5 1/4 inches up here isn't stretching over here. But all we need to do is snip enough of this off to stretch it. We will have a gap that will be hidden behind our photo. So once we pull it down and take a look, if we kind of cut right there, and we can do that with a pair of scissors. I mean, this whole thing is going to be shown, covered up. So we don't need a perfect cut. And what do you know? I'm ready to put this in the journal.
We got off the ship, and Mike got us into some no name taxi and ended up in the part of town that I call the Champs Elysees of Honolulu. There were a lot of expensive shops. I would have rather gone somewhere else.
So I'm ready to put this in our journal, but one thing I want to say before I do, and that is, this is a 3.5 by 5 journal. 4 by 6 will go equally beautifully. And if you think you would want a 4 by 6 in here, now's a good time to just make that decision. So I'm going to begin this by putting in our mat somewhere in the center. We're going to put this roughly in the center. And then we're going to put our scallop borders tucked beneath. And one of the things about this border is you should determine how much of the border you want to have showing. And I just want the smallest amount of that inner scallop showing. And this makes for a fast and lovely layout. So while the focus of this journal for me is writing more so than photos, I'm going to replace that spot with the remnant of what we had left over when we made this band by using the back side of it. I think it goes together beautifully, and I will just put a piece of white to write on. I could write directly on that gray paper as well, but I personally like the look of this. So this remainder was about 5 1/8, and of course it was 4.5 inches wide. The sketch called for a 3.5. I used the paper in the size that it was, and I like the way it has turned out. So I just made a white mat. I cut it 1/4 inch smaller than this piece, making this to be about 4 7/8 by 4 1/4. 4 1/4 high, 4 7/8 wide. Okay, for decorating this piece right here, once again, we'll use a scrap. We will cut a circle. I'm going to use the Camera Love Border Punch. I think I'm going to use a bit of a white scrap to make my camera. I think that looks much better. Since it's right here by me, I'm going to pull out my trio punch set. This is called Piece by Piece. And I may use this little star. Why not? Let's see if we have a scrap we can make a pretty star. And does this scrap fit? I think it does. I'm going to put it in face up. There we go. I like that. And now we have an embellishment cluster with 3 elements in it. That's just my little rule of thumb, to have an odd number of elements, and 3 looked like a good number. Also note, this is a lovely area right here where more writing can be done, and very likely will be. I can see myself writing on this. And if, in case you're wondering, when I do additional decorating in my albums, I use other products, including stamping, and I could easily put a journal stamp right there of some lines and decorate that. I could also use a Creative Memories template, and I think, you know what? I'm talking myself into it. I think I will add some lines here, and I'll show you how to do that. Remember when I said I was thinking of journaling down here? Well, I found this summertime journal template. I think I could draw some absolutely beautiful lines to write on right here. There's this one, and there's this one. So I'm going to use this one, and I'll get 1, 2, 3 lines. Yeah, just 3. So the question is, will I draw in my lines with a pen or a pencil? I'm going to align my template to the edge of my page here so I can feel confident that the lines will be straight on my page. Pen or pencil? I'm going to go for pencil. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to pencil in these lines, but I'm going to go back later with a pen and a ruler and ink them in. but I like them, and I like using this summertime journal template. Not recipe template, journal template. Okay, let's get our embellishment area down. I have to admit, I do like my little lines going straight. I am about to use this Creative Memory stencil to put a little interest right here on the corner of my page. And who knows, I may put a little interest right here in the corner of this page. So I'm going to give you a little demo. These products are expected this autumn of 2025, coming to Creative Memories, where they are now incorporating what's generally called mixed media. And among the products that they have sampled to advisors has been Memento Dewdrop inks. I have not used a better ink than Memento that is currently available on the market. And I'm just tickled that I'll be able to get some from Creative Memories. I also would say that they are working hard to match the colors of the Creative Memories palettes, our cardstocks and pattern papers, with the dewdrop colors so that they offer inks that will match our Creative Memories papers and products. We do have a lot of people who are unfamiliar with using these types of products. Fortunately, while I am not a big user, I do use them and I fully embrace what Creative Memories is doing with them. I'm about to jump in. I'm about to open up this ink pad. I thought I actually had nautical blue in my own collection, but I didn't find it. I found Paris Dusk. So I'm going to use this Memento nautical blue and this brush, okay, and this stencil. Now, I will say this, a mistake that I see too many creators make is not protecting their paper. And if this had been a photo, the need to protect this even more would be higher. The first thing that I'm going to do is actually, this is just a journaling spot. I'm going to pull it up. Going to pull it up. I'm going to treat it as though it was a photo. I want it off my layout. That way, if I do get something on here that I don't want, it won't get on there. So my step one is I'm going to see, and I'm going to see if I can hold this steady with a little bit of repo on it. This is an experiment in every direction. Does that hold it down? Yes, yeah, it does. Let's put a little over here too. So I'm going to put some repo to kind of keep my stencil generally steady. Okay, it's not stuck down. It's obviously repo. I only want these little stars. They're so cute. I don't want the dipper here. So, does anyone want to guess what I'm going to do about that? If you said washi tape, you would be correct. I'm going to just use a little washi tape to make sure I don't accidentally stencil in spots where I don't want ink to go. So I'm just going to cover up some of this stencil with a little washi. I think it'll be easier. There's enough gap right there that I'm not likely going to accidentally. But of course, I may be giving myself too much credit. Okay, so I've kind of covered up parts of the stencil where I don't want ink to be made. I want ink just in this little corner right here. I have my stencil pretty snug so it's not going to slip and slide. So my next step is to take my ink and get a good amount of ink onto my dauber. So I'm going to tap, 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 tap. Look, it needs more. Tap, 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 tap. Now we're getting there. Tap, 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 tap. More, more, more. Now we're talking. So let's get our brush nice. Oh, there we go. So a brushing motion. Brushing motion seems to be a good way to get ink. Now notice I have a good chunk of dark ink right here. Pretty dark. Now, if we were doing this on another piece of paper, the first advice is you see, I already used ink. I'm going to tap off some of the excess because the first thing when you first put the saturated pad on, it's going to be heavily inked. And you know what? Now, looking at the size of this pad, I think it'll be in my best interest to put a little more washi tape because I can now see myself putting ink where I don't really want it. So I'm going to use washi tape to cover up all of that right there. And so now I rubbed my ink. I don't know if this is in screen or not. I rubbed the ink pad. I dabbed off the first heavy ink. And here we go. We're going to rub this. Oh, this is beautiful. And we're getting this ink down into that template beautifully. You can re-ink if you choose. I don't think it's going to be necessary for me to do that. I think I like this. Oh, now I am getting some on my jeeping, and it is staining my jeeping. So lesson learned. Let's see if I can get that off my jeeping with a white damp cloth. Okay, damp cloth. We'll take it off the jeeping. But I think I have what I want. Next time though, I will put probably some washi tape on my jeeping as well to give it a little protection. Okay, I think I have accomplished what I wanted here. Let's reveal and see what we have. I like it. I like it very, very much. That is just a little bit, I like that. That really put a little interest here on this page. Well, guess what, scrapbook friends? This is on the way. For a first time trying this out. Okay, now that I have this, I have my damp squeegee here, and I'm just going to clean off my stencil, the damp cloth, so it doesn't get permanently stained. I'm also going to dab off. Now, my dauber is going to permanently have this color, so I do not expect it to be white ever again. But I do feel that I could use a different shade of blue. And, ooh, I'm staining it with my cloth here. So, put this somewhere where it can dry. I'm going to go and run it under water and see if I get it cleaner. I'll let you know. It's not perfect, but it's quite clean. Just plain water. Here's a close-up of my little job of stenciling. My very first time using these stencils, too. Well, here's our finished layout. I am so happy with it. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this and got something out of it, and I hope you had a little fun also. Thank you for watching.